It seems a lot of people have joined, and I'm sure more people will join while we're talking.
Do you want me to hit speaker or gallery? How should I do this? Keep it on speaker?
Oh, you can keep it on speaker.
Okay, you're in charge because I'm the new guy in the block. First timer.
Yeah. But we have lots of new people joining this episode, and there's some that's been here before. I'm just going to do some introduction while people are still joining. My name is Stig Marlon Weston. I run Cyan Studio, photography studio and collective in Oslo, Norway. And I've teamed up with another Norwegian photographer, Kristin Linnea Bakke, and she sadly couldn't join us today for this episode, but she's usually part of this as the moderator of these conversations. But we're organizing these talks together to just let photographers share their experience with each other. And we are, for every episode, inviting one photographer to talk about their work and their experiences and how they see their own photography, how they see their own practice, and take questions from the audience. And we are so lucky today to have Jack Bernot visiting us.
We are? That's good news.
Yeah, we are.
We're lucky to be around still.
Yeah. At the last episode of Sharing Experience, we saw some of your work being shown by John Rutter from the Polaroid studio, because he was showing different photographers using the giant Polaroid camera, and we really liked your work. So we were so happy to have you here for the next episode to talk about how you do your photography as well, and expand a bit on what we saw last time.
Great.
Wow.
Thank you for having me. You know, everybody can take their masks off now. We're in a safe environment. Yeah. And if you don't like your seats, talk to your usher. We'll see if you can get a better seat. And
hopefully we all have front row tonight or today.
Pardon?
And there's people coming from all over the world, it looks like, from the guest list here. And we hope that you all manage to stay awake if you're on the other side of the globe, or that this is a good time for you to be here. We have in the chat box, you can open and people can send messages to each other. And hopefully you could also post for everyone questions for Jack Bernot if you have while he's talking. And we'll have a Q&A session after his lecture. And we are hoping that there are lots of interesting questions from people. If there's too many, we might have to cut some, but we're hoping to get through everything. Yeah. Are you ready, Jack?
As ready as a guy for his first time Zoom meeting could be. Yeah, I think I am.
This is going to be exciting. Your first Zoom talk. And I think it looks really nice. You've set up so nicely behind you. I kind of miss having something more behind me now, but it looks good. Are you in your studio?
We wanted it to look good.
Yeah.
And so I'm here with my colleague, John Scott, who is off camera, but he has a mic and he'll be in at some point. He has done all those monster prints behind me and all my scans for 30 years. We've been very close. He's a great printer, a great friend. There's a lot of people behind the scenes here who've been involved in my work. It does take a village. It's rarely ever one. And I'll explain that as I go along. So if you're ready to go, I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
Great. Well,
do I hit play now?
I will just say some things about you first, for those who don't know your work that much from beforehand. That you were born and raised in Chicago. And
yes, pretty much.
You work there today?
I'm sorry?
You still live and work there today?
I'm at the corner of Grand and Damon right now. Beautiful downtown Chicago, coming to you live. And we do have a nice date here. Yeah, I'm still in Chicago, the Windy City. city of big shoulders and beef sandwiches. And yeah, I was raised here and transferred to the Kansas City Art Institute, where I met Ellen Carey and a number of other people. I don't know who's on because I can't see everybody. Lawrence McFarland. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and I basically started there, and I've sort of done a full circle and come back to that. And I'll take you on the journey if you'd like to go with me.
Yeah. So you've also been a professional photographer for more than 40 years.
Yeah, I have been. I started out like many, photo assistant, assisting people, and then made it out on my own, a little bit at a time. Gave somebody a photograph. They gave me $1, and I said, that works. Let's do that all the time. And so I did make a living. Primarily, my work has been in magazine and advertising a little bit, although I don't consider myself a advertising type personality. I did have an agent who did think I was that, and I thank him greatly for bringing me jobs over the years that he thought was a good fit. And about 20 years ago, I started really immersing myself back into my Polaroid work.
Yeah.
It did begin when I was young, when I was a boy. My dad had one of the early Polaroids, and of course, I liked it and wanted to use it. And when I would ask if I could, he would say, do you know how much this film costs? And of course, I would say, no, I have no idea. But it cost a lot of money, and it still does. So, that was the start of my Polaroid work. When they would leave the house, I'd get the Polaroid and go out and shoot my friends and leave a couple left so that I wouldn't get caught. I always got caught. And, then I just sort of went on and started college. And that was 1969 was pretty much day one for me of, the long journey, which brought us here today.
Well, we're all looking forward to seeing more, both of your professional work and your artistic work. I'll just remove myself from the stage, and you can share your screen and
Should I hit play now? Are we going to play?
Yeah, we are.
Here we go. Okay. Now, here is our sharing photo experience. Now, I have no pictures on my screen, so I don't see anyone else. I don't know if you see me. Jack Perno is my name, and
I don't think you're sharing your screen yet, Jack.
Oh, I haven't? Okay, let's try that again. We'll start again. Thanks for your help. Hold on. I'm going to try it again. Share screen is where?
On the bottom under your picture, there's the green button with an arrow.
Where it says live on Facebook.
No, where it says share screen. On the bottom under the picture of you.
Mouse down to the bottom of the screen. It might be invisible. Sometimes it's a pop-up.
Okay. Oh, I see. There it is. There it is. I had it below my dock. I apologize. There we go. And now I'm going to share. And okay, that work?
That works.
All right, let's go back. There we go. Okay, I guess I'm not ready for prime times. I apologize. And sharing our photo experience, once again, yours truly, Jack Perno from Chicago. And this sort of tells you just a little bit about where I begin. Light painting is something that has been involved with my photography since the beginning and still is. I just selected this photograph to start with because I shot this in Norway in 1977, about 1978. We were traveling through a pass and heard loud noises and saw these rams out in the field, I guess they are. And I crawled out and got really close to them, and I thought, this is pretty cool. And they just looked at me and then went back to bashing their heads. They must have been artists. And I entitled this one Battle of the Rainbow Bridge, long before I ever saw a Marvel movie, but this is in gratitude to our hosts. So shot in Norway, brought to you from Chicago. Kansas City Art Institute is where we began, and we did it one picture at a time. This is what I've really tried to tell anyone who I've worked with is, rather than attempting to create a giant portfolio, just do it one picture at a time, and eventually you will have a body of work. It seems overwhelming to try and create bodies of work. So I've always tried to just say, let's just do it one at a time and do them well. In the beginning, for most of us as photographers, our friends were our models and the street was our canvas. And this was one of the early shots I shot down in the farmers market of the Kansas City Art Institute. And again, just walking the streets, photographing whatever we saw, working to get to the next photograph. You know, as young people, we didn't have a career, we weren't really career minded. We were just focused on taking pictures and possibly eating. And as we spoke about last time, we didn't really have very far to fall. So taking chances was it was something that we were comfortable with because we were already at the bottom and we only had one way to go, and that seemed to be up. At the time, photography was basically, I'd say, documentary and social consciousness, and that reigned supreme. And then along came Jerry Ullsman with his first book in 1969. And when I saw it, I realized that photography could be so much more than just a recording device. So I started complicating my photography with multiple imagery, multiple negatives, taking over multiple enlargers in the darkroom at night when the students were home, and just coming up with ideas. No, that is not Telly Savalas between takes of Kojak. It was just a fella sleeping in Central Park that I caught one day. You know, I would ride the L and just, you know, do complicated multiple images. Now, when you're young, as I said, you only have the street and people you know, but every now and then I would take my camera to rock concerts and photograph bands that I loved. But I did arrive a little late on the scene because I was still in college and the very famous photographers were already doing their work, and I was a little late to the party. But I did get a few and I got published. And so this was my one rock photograph that I carried with me through life. And at the end of our academic period at the Kansas City Art Institute, this was my introduction to publishing. We were invited to submit work to a book on young American photographers. And this was volume 1. Ellen is in it. Lawrence McFarland is in it. A number of our colleagues were in it. And this is what really got me addicted to publishing and like that moment of I can be in print outside of the darkroom. This next section I call Printernet because it's a combination of my print work and things that I've put up on the internet because it's here now. And I won't say print is dead, but it is on life support. So in order to make a living, I found that magazines and I were a really good fit. I deal well with people. I feel comfortable with celebrities. You know, you have 5 minutes to be best friends with somebody you may work with for 30 minutes and then it's over. So magazine work was one of the things that I did a great deal of, and it allows for experiment. And for me, it's simple narratives that work well and they're loosely fit. So again, this takes me back to it does take a village. It's never one, it's always a group of people. Generally, in my case, it would be a hairdresser, a makeup artist, a stylist, an assistant or two to help me, and a small group. But you can never say it's just you. It's impossible. It takes people. And so again, on the left, you'll see there's a photograph of a girl in leaves. I still continued to do my multiple image composite work when I was doing fashion work, and sometimes it was allowed. Now, there are things that you simply cannot plan for. Directing a shot of a girl jumping, looking back perfectly with her dress, you just have to be ready. Basically it's like be ready and get the shot if you can. I've worked with musicians, which I really enjoy, being one myself. And I like men of strong character who are silent. On my left is Jimmy Dillon, who has played guitar for many, many famous artists, Carlos Santana, E Street Band. I've done a couple of his album covers. Again, more magazine covers. This is getting back to the experimental. Everything I do somehow has a little bit of experimental work in it or a risk factor. As I was saying to Stig yesterday, I seem to have two invisible friends that I share the room with. On my left, risk, and on my right, chaos. And I plant myself firmly in between and just let it rip. In this case, this is long drag shutter exposures where I get movement into my photography. Now, Don Yoshida, who's with us today, invited me. He's a professor at the School of the Art Institute, and he has been running the fashion department. He's been there for 25 odd years, I believe. I don't want to give it if I'm correct. And a couple of years running, Don invited me to participate in their end of the year fashion class photography session for a fashions show at the end of the year downtown. And so each student would bring in a garment, and we would just take it and, you know, get very creative. And because they're students of the Art Institute, they were highly creative. You know, their focus was not on commercial marketing, but more almost an art form and a sculptural approach to fashion. And Don, if I'm missing anything, or if you have anything to comment on, please feel free.
No, the only thing I'm going to say is that Joyce Taft was here, and she had a lot to do with this too.
I only see a couple of you on screen. So yes, again, as I want to get back to the important part of it, really does take a group of very talented people for me to look good. There's no way I can take credit for everything. It's the students, it's the art direction, it's the collaborative process. There is no one single person with all of the ideas. The following year, we decided to change a little bit and put a lot more light painting into it. And it was just very exciting. Drag shutter, light painting, delayed exposures. And we also used non-professionals. This young gal came in with her sister. I'm going to back up one. This is her sister on the far left with the hat. And then she came in when she was about 13 years old. You know, some girls want to be models and some girls are already talent. And this girl was one of those people. She was enraptured by the photography. And I told her mother, in 2 years, bring her back, you know, when she's like 15 or so, because she really loved it. And we used her in many shots, and she didn't even really need direction. She just did everything. In fact, for the one on the far left, she said, "Can you make it like I'm dancing in water light?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, let's give it a try." And again, now we had a young person who contributed an idea, and I got down on the floor and she's stomping around with her feet, and you know, it just came out great. This is where we introduced Brandy Kraft, who you're going to see an immense amount of flower work coming forward, where Brandy, who has been one of my creative partners for many years, I could not do a majority of my photographs without her. She's a talented painter, artist. I'll talk more about her as we go along. We brought this young woman in here, Jessie Lynn, who was a very young model at the time. And she was just had this great, natural, beautiful look about her. And we said, she looks just damaged enough, but she wasn't. She's a beautiful girl. And so Brandy would create the styling, create the flowers, and you know, we would do these beautiful images, we thought. And apparently Vogue felt the same. And more magazine work. This is Jessie Lynn, where Brandy took a pair of jeans and created a turban for her. And again, we had nothing to lose, especially when we're working on our own photography. I have what I call an approach that's called no end user, meaning we don't have anyone that we are trying to appeal to. If it doesn't appeal to you, okay, fine. If it does, great. But we really often photographers will say, who's going to like this? Who do we show this to? What are they looking for? It was one of the classic phrases. And we didn't really care what they were looking for, because they don't know what they're looking for. They only know what they're not looking for. As if they knew what they were looking for, but they would have already seen it. So this was another one where I engaged with the services of a really talented artist who worked in paper. And we'll get more to him. Now we're onto the portal. The portal here is it was a project that I still am working on, and I've worked on it for quite a while, and I'm going to continue to work on it. As I think if you were to ask anybody what's a portal, my children would say it's a point from one point to another. And I can't say that there's any rhyme or reason to the ideas behind the portal other than to create something experimental and interesting. I don't know where the ideas come from. They come from anywhere. They could be a conversation with a friend. It could be when I'm driving in my car. Often I have had occasion where I'll be working on a project with an individual, maybe a portrait. And when I complete it, I will say, can you stick around for a few more minutes? And I'd like to shoot a portal. And, 100% of the people say, sure. I show them one. This was one we did after a men's shooting. And now, something I should probably mention about the portals is in order to create one, I shoot a round neon light on solid black on Polaroid. These are all shot on 4x5 Polaroid Type 55. It's all on film, multiple in-camera exposures. There's no Photoshop involved in this stuff, unless we go to print and have to clean some little thing up. That's nothing, but this is all in camera. And the greatest difficulty with it is registration. Well, a good idea helps. For every good idea you see, there's plenty that are in the garbage that were bad ideas. So, but alignment, there's no way to really know the alignment because these are multiple exposures, exposing in the camera for the portal, and then the idea that follows. In this case, we were out at the end of a pier, and the young boy was, I directed him. It happened to be my son at the time, so it was easy to direct him. And I could not get one single shot in alignment. The boy was to the left, the hand was to the right. There was everything was like, Finally, I said, it's getting dark. The lights are coming on. We have one sheet of film left. Last one. Nothing worked. Last shot, we got it. And it only takes one. Even if you get two, it only takes one. This is one of my favorites. This is Kwesi Day. He was a talent that we shot for an editorial spread on men's clothing. And I asked him if he would stick around toward the end if I could do a shot of a portal for him. And I just loved it. The room is built out of canvas backgrounds. Very, very, very famous artist, John Van Hammersveld. John he's a friend of mine. He was visiting my studio with his wife one day. And John did the cover of the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour, Exile on Main Street, Jefferson Airplane's Crown of Creation, Grateful Dead albums, and many others, Cream posters. Very famous artist, tremendous talent. This one came out of a photo shoot that we were doing for the Lincoln Park Zoo. The Lincoln Park Zoo every year has a benefit fundraiser for the zoo, and they've asked me a couple times to please do the creative on it. So this one, they wanted to do a takeoff of Moulin Rouge, and we called it Zoulin Rouge. And the fella here with the glasses on, we called him Dr. Zoulin. And when we finished the photo shoot, I said, would you guys please stick around for another portal shot? And yes, they did. And they were character actors who I never shoot professional character actors. But these guys were just so great. And you have to tell them to pretend, because there is no portal in the shot. You have to explain to these people, there's a portal in front of you, blah, 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 and please get into the character. The man at the top there, who's you can't see, you just see his nose and his eyes, is the father of this young girl. They live in rural America, in Michigan. And I was visiting their house, and the young girl was showing me her outfit that she had made for some event. Could have been school or Halloween, I don't recall. And I said, would you come out to the house and could we shoot you as like a fairy? And she's like, yeah. Well, she's a grown woman today, and she may even be watching today. I don't know. And her name is Logan. Logan Corey. And we call this Logan's Portal. And the way I explained it to her as she's running and jumping, I go, you have to imagine you're trying to get back to your world, and people are in pursuit to get you into the lab to experiment on you or whatever they do in movies. And she just did it great. Again, we shot many photographs, but this was the one. But this was the first one. And here we have Jackson and Teddy Perno, who are also grown men now. This was my first portal, and they were out on the beach. And, in order to make these illusions believable, we have to light the people from the source where the portal begins. So in this case, it was sunset on the horizon. So we chose sunset so that it looked like they were being brightly lit. And I'm saying, boys, do you know what a portal is? Oh yeah, Dad, we do. It's a way to go from one world to another. Now these are kids who play video games and the thumb games, so they know everything about fantasy. And I thought they did a beautiful job. So again, here's one of Jimmy Dillon playing a resonator guitar. We were working on one of his album covers. Not one of my best portals, but I do like it, and I love Jimmy, so we did this one. And that sort of concludes the portal series for today. Now, before I go ahead here and move on to the next one, I'd like you to take a look here at what you're seeing is the portal against a textured background. That background is a muslin background that has been painted. It is in black and white. You'll see color in a minute. But it is a black and white, it is a muslin background that has been painted, folded, and walked on for 30 years. And so consequently, what happens is it wears out, and I put lights behind it to create a tapestry effect, which brings us to the vanishing medium Polaroid. This is a project I've been on for almost 20 years now, and it begins with Polaroid Type 55. Again, I will have people come in. We will exchange ideas and say, what do you think? In this case, the hairdresser was a makeup artist as well. And she took some sort of gauze and put it over the woman's face and drew on it and put feathers in her hair. And we got a Dior cape and just came up with this really lovely photograph. Again, this was part of Zoulon Rouge, Type 55 Polaroid on the right of the woman, and 20 by 24 Polaroid on the left. This is where John and I took this man on the left into a restaurant one morning that had a waterfall. And we put him in the waterfall and put Polaroids all over the restaurant before they opened. And it was a crazy and wild experience. And now I'm not sure, John, whether I'm going to get this correctly, but I believe it was the color P3 negatives with the black and white pods to create a sepia tone photograph. He'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's correct.
It is correct. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let's back it up quickly. Often I will take a beauty shot, and then this is also Type 55 Polaroid. I'll do a subject study, and I incorporate nature into a lot of my photography. And so what I'll take it, I'll shoot a shot, a beauty shot perhaps, and then go out and into my house in Michigan, into the forest, and I'll shoot some bark on a tree, and just to see what happens. I have no intention. Again, the no end user. I don't have anybody in mind at the end. I just want to see what happens. And some of them work and many of them don't. Okay, so here we are at the Polaroid lift. Now, this began years ago when I was invited. I did not invent the Polaroid emulsion lift. It was done many times before I ever came on the scene with small Polaroids out of pack cameras. But I decided to notch it up to start by working on the 8x10, the large format. In this case, this was my very, very early process, the early time. And I had a girl come in, sit in the very same spot, the same camera position, and just kept changing filters. Maybe I moved the lights a little bit, but I kept changing filters. And then I took pieces when I would cut them up. Like I said, there's 3 pieces here, 4 actually, 1 blue, red, yellow, all the same, cut around. Then there would be many pieces left over, so I would create assemblies out of them. And I came up with this one. This must have 15 pieces. And this was really the beginning to like, okay, where can I take this? Where can this go? Well, Here we go. As I mentioned to you earlier, when I showed you the last portal, I have canvas and muslin backgrounds that have been used for decades and painted, folded, walked on, refolded. And so what happens is the paint cracks over many years. So if you want to make one of these, I suggest you start today so you can use it in 30 years and when it looks old, or go get an old painting. So what I would do is I would shoot the subject again, and then I would backlight the canvas or the muslin background to create, I guess you could say, a Renaissance effect or a vintage effect. And then I would come in and I would start my lifting process. Now you're going to see that some lifts are barely lifted. I try to keep, maybe a rectangle effect to it, and others just go off the hook. When I shoot partial nudes, I will usually try to accommodate the folds in any sensitive parts of the body so that they are not revealed. I like to keep things kind of mysterious if I can. Oh, sorry. Often people, when they see the Polaroid emulsion lift, they will say something to the effect of, it looks like it's printed on silk, or it feels like it's a piece of fabric that's moving. And that is partially true because it is moving. It's done in water. And in this case, I tried to just pull it a little bit off, create a little reveal as though she's looking from behind some sort of veiled effect, a multiple exposure, and then a lift. So when most photographers have completed their photograph, when they've pressed the shutter button or the cable release, that's when most of us are finished. We've taken the picture, it's over, and then we go make our picture. For me, that's the halfway point. We've got the picture, now where do we go? And this is where I like to call it walking on a tightrope without a net. I don't know where it's going to go. I can say a little experience has given me the ability to envision certain things, but there's no controlling water. Again, risk and chaos, and I'm right between them. Water is chaos, and you just don't know. Now, I may say, I may know that I'm going to do a little peek or reveal, and I'll say, put your hands there, and I'll see where that goes later. Now, this in a regular photograph looks perfectly stupid. But once you take the emulsion off and start moving it around, things change. Give you a second to look. I know I'm talking an awful lot. I'm going to show some detail shots here as well. And you can see that there's sort of a wormy effect on the highlight side of her face. That is the adhesive. When to strip a Polaroid off of its original substrate, the sooner you do it from the time you take it, the greater chance of getting this adhesive gel that is trapped, that keeps the emulsion to the backing. But when it's still, once you've taken the Polaroid, there's still some humidity in there. So when you assault it with scalding water, it creates a bead-like effect, which you can see, which I love, but I don't get all the time. It really requires lifting the Polaroid quickly. You can see it on the right in the detailed shot on this one. And, sometimes I'll really take a shape on and just trying to, in this case, I wanted to see if I could make an alphabet letter. So I tried to shape it like a C. I don't know why. The one on the right with the top hat, a very, very early attempt at it, but and it doesn't really fit with the overall majority of the body of work, but I loved it so much that I thought, okay, this is a good place to start. On the left, you'll see, this was a close-up version, and then you'll see this one. Occasionally, the emulsion will start to tear. I will tell you that it is much stronger than you think it is. It appears like it's very fragile and delicate. I suppose for the most part it is, but it can take some abuse. And but when it gets cold, that's when it starts to tear. Another Art Institute student that literally just came by, and we really liked her, and she was open to shooting with us, and she had black lips that day, and we said, can you come back with your black lips another day? And sure enough, she did. Now, This series that we're getting into, this is all the same woman. I would, in the experimental process, I would go, let's, for example, on the one on the right with the girl with the leaves, the hairdresser makeup artist would be working on this girl in the dressing room. And I would take a hanging plant that was in my window, like a vine plant. And I walk in and like hold it up. I go, can you do anything with this? And she'll go, put it over there, and I'll see. And what she was able to come up with was just spectacular. It's one of my favorite photographs. Again, all the same woman. And this is where I really, as John will tell you, green is not a very popular color in photography or printing. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem to be used very often. But we really liked it a lot. Now in this one, this is where I had the girl push her hand out, and I took my thumb and went right on her hand. It's let's see, right there, like this. Just a seated study. Again, just, put your hand over your face, reveal your eye, and I'll come up with something later. The girl on the right, just raise your hands over your head. We put some grapes in her hair, try to create some sort of a mythical figure. Again, here we have Logan, the girl who had a portal. We did some color shots of her in the forest, and we wrapped her in flowers and vines, and she was sort of caught in this. I think this might have been during that Harry Potter period where fantasy was reigning supreme, and I embraced it, and so did she, and we had a lot of fun. And on this one, it's two 8x10 Polaroids that I've seamed together. In the middle, you can see there's a tree, and that was where I was able to hide the seam. So on the left photograph, I'm saying, okay, we made some sort of a wand out of stuff and said, now make the trees bend. And we called this one Logan in the Wiggly Woods, because she made the woods wiggle up. And so that's some fun with that. Here she is walking off into the distance as a little angel walking into the light. Now this is what happens when the water gets really cold and you have one of those uh-oh moments. Uh-oh. And I'm holding the emulsion in my hands and it's falling apart. And I go, we don't have any time now. And I go, wham, and I just like threw it down on the paper. Well, it worked out very well. It's one of the only ones that I have like this, and we call this one the Broken Madonna. And of course I went in and I go, okay, we'll move a little of this, twist a little of that, push off to the side. Okay, we're all done, leave it alone, step back. Now, part of the process is knowing when to quit. Every good painter has to know when to stop putting paint on the canvas. It's really hard. I gotta fix this. Oh, if I do this one, if I maybe a little bit more. And before I know it, I've ruined it. And there is no going back. Once you've gotten it to a point, it's time to know when to quit. This was just a series that I wanted to put a black sort of veil on her, and we ripped it so it would have a little exposure in it, knowing that I was going to strip the emulsion. Now you'll notice I cropped in on the sides here, but then again, I take it out of the square rectangle shape and let it go where it goes. Okay, blue. Now I do title most of my pieces, and this one is no different. The one on the right, I've entitled Freya. Now, Stig and I had a conversation about this the other day. We know who Freya was. She was a Norse god of the Vanir, and she was Odin's wife. And so I have for some reason, I've made Nordic references to some of my work, and I'm not exactly sure what drew me there. In this case, I was shooting through plexiglass or an acrylic and sprayed it with ice crystals around the edge, just so she could see through them. And, with an 8x10 on a limited depth of field, I always try to focus on the eyes. That's my primary area, because, if everything else is sharp but the eyes are blurry, it loses something. So I don't mind if everything else is blurry and the eyes are sharp. That's where you'll see I focus on everything. On the left, we have what is my only attempt at using Polaroid emulsion lifting for a commercial purpose. This is where I suspended the no end user policy. And that is an Absolute bottle. At the time, in my opinion, Absolute advertising was the best. I might still think it is the best. They used all types of artists, painters, sculptors, everyone that represented art was possibly invited to work on the Absolute project. So I took the Absolute bottle and started creating Absolute Polaroid. To the left, I call that one Absolute Bastille, because it just reminded me of Bastille Day. I thought, this is fantastic, Absolute Bastille, of course. The right one, I don't have a title. This one, however, I thought Limbo Rock, when you're on the beach and you have to go underneath the thing. So I thought, let's make the bottle look like it's doing the limbo. I don't know. I don't have a title for this. This might be Absolute Carsick, but I played with it. And this one, you can see it's a graduation of I wanted to keep the bottle as straight as possible and squeeze the Polaroid edges into it as closely as I could without, degrading the actual bottle itself. That was the challenge in some cases, is to not manipulate the image, to try and keep the image straight, because once that emulsion is moving around, it's very difficult to keep it as it was when it was on its original substrate. And then I went, as you can see in the middle, I gave it a little bit more, and then on the right-hand side, let's go. Now we've got some storylines of people in the studio, seated women, Polaroid emulsion lifts, tungsten lighting to warm it up. And this was really one of the first successful ones with that really resonated with me early on with the emulsion lifting. This one's called Elena Seated. She was a muse, I guess, for me for many years. She would just do anything. You need to have people's absolute trust. When they walk in the studio and they just start taking off their clothes and sit down and say, what do I do now? They have to know that they trust you. They trust you. The people that you work with trust you. The agencies that represent these people trust you. The only thing that I cannot promise them is that they will get something that's commercial. That usually doesn't happen, but you will get a piece of art. And I do simple narratives, brushing hair, in this case, washing feet. This one was interesting because I was looking for old documents from European documents. So I found an old Italian real estate document from the 18th century, I think it was, and it was perfect for what I wanted. I wanted to create something called a narrative called The Letter. Now, whether it was your tax bill got raised and you're terribly upset about it, or your boyfriend was killed at the war, I asked the woman, could you please find a way to become, engaged with this really bad news coming in from the letter? And I have, to her credit, she was spectacular. She actually made herself cry. And it was like, oh my God, I really got this. And so I was grateful to her. And here she is, where I just took it back and just did a nice little emulsion lift. This section is interesting because we would take what, for lack of a better term, I'll call it ceramic slip, where we would take pottery clay, put it in water, dilute it to a very thin ceramic slip, and then we would brush it on the bodies of people, and we would then, in this case, ask them to, once it dries, which it dries very quickly, pressure their muscles to crack it. So this was my most successful. And this is funny because the guy's name was Clay with a K. So I asked Clay to crack the clay, and he did. And this one is entitled Cost of Freedom. And I think it's sort of self-explanatory, the bonds of slavery and so on and so forth. So a very, very powerful photograph, I like to think. He was great to work with and very, very receptive. And it's just a simple 8x10 Polaroid, nothing done to it, no multiple exposures, just another seated, but it's an older one, but I've always liked this picture. Again, back into the dressing room with a ball of string. Can you do something with this? Yes, put it over there. And this is what she came out with. And I absolutely love the simplicity of this and the lighting. And again, lighting, focusing on the eyes and letting everything else drop out of focus. This was used on the cover of one of the Polaroid magazines. Very simple, hair left, flower right. Fairly self-explanatory. It's just a very beautiful, pretty photograph. And here we have the 20x24 Wisner that John very graciously allowed me to use for a year. Of course, when John is not in the room and things go wrong, things stay wrong. When John is in the room and things go wrong, things get right very quickly. Thank you for that, John. And again, a 20x20, this is where we're getting into the 20x24s. And this is all shot under the skylight a number of years ago. Same girl, just simple. Now, I'm going to jump back here very quickly for this 8x10, because this is where we're going to get into more of Brandy Craft's contributions to the creative works of Polaroid. She creates the flowers, she dries the flowers. She's just absolutely fantastic. She's a great painter, and I cannot say enough good things about her. Well, I can, but I'd use up on my time. Here's a double 8x10 Polaroid where we shot the girl on the left, Jessie, did a multiple exposure, and then shot a piece of just the background alone on the right. And I seamed it in the center and squished it a little bit on the right and created a double 8x10. Again, background. And then a squeeze. Same girl, squeezed in. And here she is, Brandy Craft. This would have been Valentine's Day. She came into the studio. We were not feeling particularly happy that day, so we brought out our favorite color, black, our spring colors. And she made a hat, and I got out some expired Polaroid. Now, expired Polaroid has two characteristics that I know of that are very evident. One, you don't get a really good black. And two, after a period of time, after, let's say, within 6 months to a year after expiration, it will start to streak. Because John, I'm sure you could explain this better, but there's a chemical breakdown that has a negative reaction. But on the other hand, I don't take it personally because it's happening to everyone. It's not just happening to me. It happens to anybody who uses it. So we said, let's make it work for us. Let's find a way to make expired Polaroid look good. So Brandy and I did these portraits of her, and I thought it looked pretty good. Now, here we go to New York, and we're shooting for a couple of years with John in the Polaroid studio. Again, we had a great hair and makeup team, and Brandy was great as always. This is a photograph of a young actress, artist, provocateur. Her name is India Menuez, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. We brought her in. She was willing to do anything. And here we have multiple images and light painting. Sometimes with these people, you don't need to direct them. They just do things and you capture it. Here we are back with Jessie, and then the fellow who I mentioned earlier, Tyler Johnson, who creates these magnificent paper, whether they're the headpieces or you'll see another one. He's just magnificent. Here's India. Yeah, now this one was just great. This was, he created that beautiful, I don't know if I should call it a breastplate or whatever, but it's all paper. Then Brandy came in with the flowers. The hairdresser made the earrings and put it in the hair, and just it all came together. And I found a background of satin roses that I put behind her, and we found this dress. It just all worked so beautifully. Now here's where Brandy starts working with her hybrid flowers, and her hybrid flowers is where she takes a selection of multiple species and creates them into a singular new species. And you can find, if you track down Brandy on anywhere on the web, pretty much Facebook, Instagram, she's always posting new paintings of her hybrid flowers. And in this case, we were working with this girl, Alinea, I believe her name was. And Brandy will always say, you've got 30 seconds to get this. Do it. These things are going to fall apart. The glue is coming apart. The flowers are drying. Get the shots. So, time is of the essence. Very simple. Now we have, thanks to John, I'm going to click this on. Whoop, come on. Whoop. There we go. This is on set. We will strobe her right here. And now that freezes the action. And then we come in with the, come on, Perno, there we go. It's dark in the room, but the low light sensor in the video camera allows us to see more. And then I will go in with it's called a hose master. It's a fiber optic light. And I will go in and start painting. The hairdresser is blowing the hair with a little hand blower to keep it moving so that that hair will blur. Now, I keep the light off of the model's face because I don't want her face blurred. I mean, it's going to happen a little bit around the edge, which we don't mind. But the flowers, the hair, the background, I'll paint. There you see, boom. And I have to get out of that picture quickly because otherwise you're going to see a ghost of me doing this. And then what happens is you'll see, even though it looked like a lot of light, it wasn't. You can see around the edges of the flower, there's shading and there's edges around here. So, and again, Brandy's hybrid flowers. We would go down to the flower mart at like 4:30, 5 a.m. in the morning and go shopping. More of her hybrid flowers. This is the photograph you can see in the background here. Two examples, one with a Polaroid lift, one that is not lifted, just so you can see the differences in extremes. Whether they're good or bad, that's the viewer's choice. Again, background of multiple exposures. Here we go. This is where Brandy would take flowers and put them on, create fingerlings, and the hairdresser put them in the hair and, with no rhyme or reason. And then on the right is a close-up of the lift. Here's one of the lift. Now you'll notice at the top of this photograph, there's a pink line that goes across the photograph. When we take these photographs and process them, like any peel apart photograph, you peel them apart and you've got the film and then you've got the print. Now you lay the Polaroid down, you peel it off, and the image is revealed. John knows exactly where this is going because if the processing pod breaks unevenly, you will not get full coverage of the developer and a section will not be covered. And that was the case in this photograph. When he peeled it back, only part of the image was developed and the other part was not developed. So I'm watching him do this. He peels it off. I look at him. I say nothing. He looks at me and he says, "Do you know what Lucas Samaras would call this?" And with a moderate look of disdain, I look him in the eye and I go, "No, what?" And he answered, "A gift." And it was, and he was right. It was a gift. I made it. I looked at this and I said, we have to turn this into art. We have to make it better than what it is. And John Rutter was 100% and Lucas Samaras was on the money, and it was a gift. And what appeared to be an unprocessed Polaroid came out to be something highly artistic. And I love this picture to this day. Thank you, John. And so we have more of these close-ups. More close-ups. That's somewhere in the background here as well. Now, those are not hybrid flowers, but Brandy created a floral sleeve, and I don't know exactly what type of flowers there are. I'm sure that you flower people out there know. You flower children. Don, you're a flower child. Okay, now we have another video. Let's make sure I get this going.
Nice.
Good. This is, okay, great. So here I start out painting on the background, and the low light sensor allows us to see the model again. She's staying stationary, but it's no way she can stay still, but she is trying to stay still while I paint her. And a little bit of movement is great because we want that bit of movement. Keeping it off of her face, blasting it on the background. We'll jump ahead here because it's a lot of the same. And a good flashlight, it will work just fine. Okay. Here comes the nuclear attack. Kaboom. And bingo. And what do we have? And that's how it comes out. So it doesn't, even though it seems like a lot of light, it's not. And, but it lights. And the fall off of the 20 by 24 is magnificent. That you could see in the video that was very sharp in the background, but in here, you just see little basic lines. And then we make it into a lift. One of my very, very, very favorites. It's dark. It's, again, my spring colors, black, my favorite. It reminds me something out of like a Tim Burton character out of one of his movies. Often you don't have the luxury of getting models to move with the 20 by 24 because it's a big stationary process. But this gal really was great. She tried it, and we didn't get a lot, but we got one really great one. Okay, so let's move ahead here on the last little video so you can see it. Come on, Pern. There we go. I'm going to jump ahead because you don't need to see all this. So this is the image that we used. You can see this online. This is the image that we started with, and this will give you a much more a clearer idea of how it begins. You get your table ready. Of course, we use Scandinavian cookware, Scan pans, got to, finest there is. Filled with hot water, get your little gloves out. We prefabricate a tray, pour that hot water in. I make a stupid face, and then we get it all hot. I use distilled water. This is what I use, distilled water. I've tried all types of water, and for me, distilled water works best on the P3. Oh, that delicate hand he's got, and let's rock the boat. My secret tool, a spatula. I used to use my fingers, but they started to get too dried out. And there's the emulsion moving around, off. What's he going to do next, folks? No way. He's not going to do this. He is. He's going to pick it up. Oh my God, there he goes. Okay. And the jellyfish is in the bowl. Now we change the water. We put a new substrate in. This is Fabriano Artistico paper. We use the 630, the heaviest paper they have, the very heaviest, because once the water gets absorbed into that paper, the paper will start to collapse. So we have a limited amount of time for which we can open this up and put it to work. Pull it out. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, now let's throw it onto the, boom. Great. Now I'll dip it back in because I'll pull the corners out. And then I'll go and do a little bit of handwork. Now, to get smooth lines, you have to let the water do it. But to do slight maneuvering, you can do it with your fingers. Here, I try to keep the face clean. And the finished print is right there. Okay, there is the finished print, which John, you can't see it, it's behind camera on the wall behind me, but John made a beautiful 10-foot print of this. The wonderful thing about working with the 20 by 24, one of the many things, is you can enlarge these things to 10 feet and the eyelashes are still razor sharp. And there is John Scott, my colleague. John, I want to say hello on your mic. Lean up there.
I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Looking
this is
good,
John
Jay.
Scott, the fellow with the
Yeah.
glasses. He's printing, and there's his colleague Robert. And as you can see, John's making a big print for me there. And another member of the band who I could not do without. He's my friend and my partner for many decades. And so we have another picture. And there's Brandy Kraft, the woman who wears so many hats. We had to shoot her at a hat store. You know, she does it all. And yes, that is a picture of Mick Jagger tattooed to her arm. So I don't know if Brandy's with us today or not, but she has my undying, forever gratitude for making these pictures look so fabulous. Thank you, Brandy. Moi to you. This is before she started doing the hybrids on camera. We were drying flowers. And then we were drying prints, lots of them. And there's the 20 by 24 real Polaroid, not the Wisner. This is the real deal. And all those prints drying on the wall. And there they are. Famous photographer Joyce Tennyson, famous photographer artist John Reuter, and that guy in the corner, Jack Perno. On the left, you see Joyce is leaning on a sculpture of nails with a flower coming out. That was made by Diane Feldposh Tang, an artist from Chicago who came to us via Motor City, Detroit, and graciously allowed us to use her sculptures to reinterpret them in our photography. And here we are drawing more Polaroids. And here they are. They're just sort of a contrast between soft and gentle. Nothing. And I believe this is bringing us toward the end of our pictures. Oh, and there's our little fella. Yeah, young and younger. I used to look like that. Yeah, keep your daughters away from that boy. And so there is that guy. And which brings us full circle. So what have you done lately, Perno? I'm glad you asked. My new project, my current project, back to the streets, like in the beginning. I purchased, John, would you hand me that little thing right over there? Thank you very much. I purchased a Leica black and white camera that I carry around with me everywhere I go. So I've come up with a project that I've entitled Walk Like a Man. And using the Leica camera, I go out, and wherever I go, I take my Leica, and the streets are still basically free. And thanks to these things, these cell phones, everybody's taking pictures of everybody. So when you're aiming your camera at somebody like this, hey, don't take my picture. I'm not. I'm taking a selfie, you know? So people are no longer get that camera out of my face because there's a camera in everybody's face these days. And that Leica monochrome is so spectacular. I love it. I go out at night and I just search for whatever I can find and wherever I go and whatever I see, and just take pictures. A little differently than I used to, but I really thoroughly enjoy walking the streets. This one I call working like a dog. Hey, those hydrants are for customers only, fella. Getting the band back together. Well, if we can, we will. We had some hits. So next year in 2022, we're going to Spain. And we're going to be doing workshops with Andreas, who you met earlier if you were here, and we'll meet him again. And we're going to be shooting big Polaroids, and we'll be bringing the camera down from Germany. John will be sending film over from America. We'll be bringing people, and we hope that you'll come too, so we can show you how to do these. And maybe if there's enough people who are interested, they can learn how to do emulsion lifts themselves. And you will be able to do your own emulsion lifts. And this is where we're thinking of going. We will be going to, I'm going to get this right, Malaga and Madrid. This is the facility in Madrid, and that is the location in, I believe, Malaga, so we can be inside or outside. And I'd like to thank you for zooming on in, everybody. And I hope we passed the audition. If we didn't, we will refund all of your money. We've notified Ticketron to give you your money back if you're not happy. So that's it for now. Do I stop sharing? What do I do next? Escape?
Okay.
All right.
You can stop sharing your screen.
All righty.
Thank
Okay.
you
How
very much.
did that work?
Yes, that was amazingly inspiring and interesting all the time. Thank
Great.
you.
Yay.
And you're getting so much praise in the comment section here. It is absolutely an inspiring set of images and techniques and way of working you have.
Who's that guy who wants his money back? Okay.
And I hope if people have any questions that they've been thinking of, that they can write them in the comment section, and I can either read them or you can be unmuted and ask them yourself. But yeah, I really have to say myself that I'm super inspired by this. It's so nice to see a photographer being so playful while still being in control. That's this balance you have between the risk and chaos, but still control is awesome. I don't know. I don't know how you would get there. Of course, you have a lot of experience. You worked a long time, but I thought wondering about how did you know that you were in such control of what you're doing? How did you get to relax enough to be so playful while still making this amazing work?
That's a good question, because it appears playful. It is not. It is stressful. It's playful now because it's finished. It began when I was working on the very first Polaroids, and a stylist from Italy came in to show his portfolio, and my producer was talking with him, and she said, you know, that's Jack over there working under the skylight on one of his projects. Why don't you go over and say hi? So he comes over, and I'm, you know, tipping and moving things, and they were very pretend, so I was under mostly control. And he goes, "This is a fantastic. I've never seen anything like this before." And I stop what I'm doing and I go, "Would you repeat that again? This is a, no, not that part." He goes, "I've never seen anything like this before." And I go, "That's what I wanted to hear." And I didn't even know I wanted to hear it, because most of the time you hear, "I love your photograph. It reminds me of," and you hear, "I love your photograph." You don't hear, "It reminds me of somebody else." So when he said that, I said, this was my moment. This was the moment that I decided I'm going to make as much of this as I possibly can. And so it just began as a journey. And I don't think the word playful ever really, it really never enters it. It seems playful afterwards, but it's nerve-wracking. It's like, when do I stop? Can I fix this? Is this enough? You know, I had to learn so many techniques of using water. And then I thought, okay, I've got this 8x10 thing down pretty good. What can we do with a 20x24? That should drive me crazy. And it did. And I learned lots of things using the larger format that I did not know about the smaller format. One being, as I mentioned earlier, the paper. When you're working with a small piece of paper, you don't have a problem, really. When you're working with a piece of paper that's 30x40, as soon as it sucks up, it starts falling apart on you. So no playful. Looks playful at the end. And I'm glad that you say that.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing is, I said no end user. When there is an end user, when you are being hired by someone, you have to um, attach yourself to some form of criteria. They expect something in return. When I'm working on the Polaroids, no one expects anything. They hope that we come up with something exciting, but it's liberating because I don't have to answer to anybody. I just answer to myself.
Mm.
But there are two things that do happen. One is during the process, you are so immersed in the experience itself, it envelops you. But if you come back 3 days later, the experience has evaporated into the universe, and all you're really left with are the results.
Mm.
And that tells you a lot. I come back and I'll look at the Polaroids, I go, 3 days ago, everything looks so different. And now they all look exactly the same. What happened here? And that was the experience going into the universe and just being left with the results. So yeah, that's, but I'm glad you say playful. I'm glad that they came across like that. Thanks.
Yeah. This is the last thing you said there. This is the thing I guess most photographers need to always remember, that you can take your pictures and you can look at your prints, but then you really need to let them leave them for a couple of days and then come back and really assess what you got, not just what you were doing at the time.
100% correct.
There's some more questions coming in. I think we'll have like 15 minutes. We're trying to stay within a 90-minute episode time. But I just want people to see the pictures you have behind you, the prints of your Polaroids, how one aspect of your work is how big they are. So yeah, just go and show the actual size, because
do you want the tall guy or the short guy? Let's go. You stand by this one.
Yeah. Yeah, the size of the work is also impressive, because you know that because of the material you use, even though you print them large, they are still super sharp and soft and have this Polaroid quality that is just amazing. But for you to be able to print them this big, that is something I would so much like to see live somewhere.
Yeah, and John really does it. And you bring up a very good point. And I'm glad you said that because I forgot about it. One of the characteristics of Polaroid that all of the Polaroid artists, I'm sure, will agree upon is they have a sharp, soft quality. And I would say almost everyone I've ever worked with, when you show them a Polaroid, when you're working for a client, they'll love the Polaroid. They go, oh, I love the Polaroid. Let's shoot the shot. You shoot the shot on film. They come back and they go, oh, it's so sharp. It's so this, it doesn't look like the Polaroid. And it's like, well, because it's not Polaroid. It isn't Polaroid. That's why it doesn't look like Polaroid, because only one thing looks like Polaroid, and that is Polaroid. Why didn't, and I asked you, could we shoot it on Polaroid? Oh, no, we can't shoot it on Polaroid because it won't, blah, 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 blah. So with the 20x24s and even the 8x10s, you do get a sharpness, but you also get a softness. And when I fold the emulsion over it, that creates a razor sharpness illusion, because the folding of the emulsion is very sharp. So it in a way, it tricks your eye to seeing sharper, even though they are sharp. So you get the quality of the soft, sharp Polaroid, but then you get the illusion of super sharpness from the folds. And John goes in, and we don't really do any sharpening. We don't do any tricks or techniques. We basically just take it as is. Now, I will admit, occasionally we do, this is a technical term, we goose the color a little bit. We'll dial it just a little bit. Sometimes you can see they are close, but in the background of this large one, you'll see the blue is brighter because we will print that on a metallic paper. So it's going to enhance the blue more. When I strip the emulsion off of a 20x24 Polaroid, when it dries down, it dries a little matte. So I guess you could call that a little bit of cheating. Hi, Lawrence. Good to see you, buddy. Lawrence was another one of our Kansas City Art Institute alumni, taught at University of Texas, I believe. And we've been friends all of us have been friends for almost 40, 50 years. And we were all in the very first graduating class of the first 4-year photography program at the Kansas City Art Institute. And it was a wonderful time, wonderful bunch of people. And I'm so glad to see Ellen and Lawrence and people who are still with us that are still generating great photography. And Lawrence is another great photographer. And, it's great to see all of you, or see some of you anyway. So.
Well, back to what you said about the printing on the metallic paper. I know you think about the process of shooting your pictures. It's just halfway, and then there's so much more after if you're adding layers or if you're doing your transfers. There's a question from Don. I don't know if he wants to unmute himself, Don Yoshida, but he asks what determines the various tints and colors of each Polaroid, and do you control your color palette in any specific way? If you want to expand on that.
That's the question, because as much as often I've seen the work, when you see this body of work and the flow of it and everything, you do notice the color shifting in different tones. And I don't know if that's a part of the process that happens through, sort of just by chance, or are you coloring these in the photography or in the process of processing the film, or in the after? I'm just wondering about the color.
The only thing we will do in color in post when we go to print large is we may just give it we won't change colors, but we may just saturate them a little bit more, because they're sometimes from the Polaroid to the scan to the final print, we may feel that we need to just give it a little bit more saturation. It's a liberty we allow ourselves to take, because there's only one original, and then the rest are going to be additioned. In answer to your question of as far as altering colors, that's all done in camera on film. Everything is done. Now, it could be either through filtration over the lens. In the case of the green series with the leaves, I used a really nice sort of lime yellow green filter. It just, the way it reacted to Polaroid film was fantastic. I don't know, I haven't seen anything like it before, and it became one of my mainstays. Other times we might filter the lights. Sometimes I'll put like a blue gel over the light that's lighting me here. So it could be one, the other, or both, but the majority of the filtration is done in camera.
Okay, or through the lighting. Yeah.
Or the lighting, correct.
Yeah.
Great. And we have another technical question here. It's nice to hear you share so much of the technical details. So what you're doing and when you're photographing and afterwards when you're working with the pictures. Vince Sebastian is asking if your Polaroids are drum scanned for the printing process.
No, actually, no, they're too big. In fact, when we make the scans on the 20 by 24s, great question, Vince, coming to us from Arizona, I believe. Vince and I know each other since we were kids. So I know Vince. I love him. He's a great guy, great artist. Went to the Art Institute of Chicago, teaches art to this day. And you can see his cyanotypes. He's a master of cyanotypes. When we scan the 20 by 24s, we have to stitch them together. We flatbed scan them. John and I work together on that. And because they're so large, we have to do 4 flatbed scans. We do 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, and then stitch them together so that we can get how big are
Oh, I think they're in the 700-800 megabyte range.
They're almost a gig each one. They're huge. We don't drum scan them though, Vince. we have to flatbed scan, and we have to separate them into
We're
multiple
using
scans.
kind of an older Epson large format flatbed scanner that allows us to, we can remove the top piece of it, and I can, move the art across the scanning bed. And we've just found that it's the quality is just unbelievable. The stitching together isn't that big of a deal. I'm pretty perfectionist at it, so I've kind of figured out how to get every pixel to line up exactly. But it just, we've tried many methods from shooting with cameras. We had Jack's Hasselblad. We've tried shooting in sections of the Hasselblad. For whatever reason, the flatbed scanner just gives us that extra notch of detail and clarity, so which has worked out real well.
Real well.
And we can make these monster prints. We could keep going. I'm just limited to the 60-inch printer that I have. So we were basically going, these 5 foot by, they were almost 10 foot in some cases here. And printing, Jack's kind of embraced that new metallic paper that's been out for maybe, 5 or 6 years, or maybe it's been a little longer, but
Let me
the
mention,
images look just fantastic on that metallic paper.
let me mention that metallic paper too, by the way. It is so beautiful working with yellows and browns and golds. When you pitch it, it really does have a metallic coppery look. And apropos to your recent question, there are no secrets. We have no secrets. We'll tell you anything you want to know. I'll show you, because ultimately you've got to go out and do it yourself anyway. So, I'll show you. You can stand right next to us and watch it. It's a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of effort and a fair amount of experience. So, ask away. There are no secrets. We'll share anything.
I just want to say that also that John Scott is like the premier printer in Chicago, if not one of the best in the country.
Thank you.
His work is totally, appreciated by the top photographers in Chicago, and I'm sure across the country if you have clients anywhere else. But I know that Jack really, so much of what Jack is presenting, the prints are so important. There's the way that they're done, and I don't think anybody else could do the work he's doing.
It was a great opportunity working with Jack when he brought in the first 8x10 emulsion lifts. Yeah, and when we scanned them up, and I was just learning my large format trade at the time, and printing on these 3547 sheets of Crane's Museo. And it was just kind of experimental at the time. I think this was mid 1990s. So the whole large format printing, or fine art printing, I'll say, large format fine art printing was in its infancy at that time. And the dyes really weren't very stable. So I had to figure out a way to get pigments into those early machines, and worked with a guy in California that was using car paints to put in the cartridges. And so we were experimenting with that to get around the limitations of the dyes that were coming out from Epson at the time. So that was a fun time, working, and blowing these up and seeing them so large, and seeing the fine detail that was in the emulsion list was really exciting. I think for Jack and myself, it was the first time we'd really seen these things blown up.
I'm sure you ship all over the country or the world.
We try. Absolutely. I have clients in LA and New York, all over the place.
Yeah, every picture you've seen, John has scanned. He's done every scan of every image. He's the one who stuck with me from the very beginning. He was a believer right from the get-go. Thank you, John.
You're very welcome.
Send me the bill. What's it bill? 20 years?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the shout out there.
Payments?
Always good to work with good people. I think we should round off, but before I do the final thought here, I just want to ask one more question I've been thinking of, because I thought it was really interesting to see your first photographs of your street photography, and then that you end up doing street photography again now. And the way your work always seemed to be rooted in how you work with the analog material and the actual physical photograph. and the process. Yes, you can do multiple and multi-exposures and composites and digital, but it seems it's important how it's actual analog in the way you do things. But now when you do street photography with a digital camera, where do you see that changes how you photograph, or is it exactly the same as going back to how you did it decades ago?
Well, that's a really good question because when we were young and just starting out, someone would walk by and you'd take a picture and hope you got it. We've all probably said in our own languages at one point or another, I wish I knew then what I know now.
Yeah.
And so what I know now, I'm applying to what I did then. And instead of just hoping I get the picture, the director in me comes out and says, excuse me, may I talk to you for a moment? And then, so the guy looking out of that gate with the cigarette smoke appears like I just got him walking by. It didn't happen that way. I said, you know, you're really interesting. May I take your photograph? And he would say, you know, well, what for? And I would say, for no reason. And he would go, are you, what do you say? Are you a professional? No, is it a hobby? And I'd say, not exactly. And he would say, are you retired? And I would say, not by choice. And then I would say, just hold on. And I'd take his phone. I'd say, look my name up on the phone. And he'd hold up and he'd hold up a picture of a Polaroid. And he'd go, is this you? And I'd go, no, but it's my picture. And he'll go, sure. Yeah, I'd love to do it. So, you know, the experience that I have allows me to engage with people and get there. Once again, we get back to this trust thing. And that allows me to sort of take what I've done for the last 40 or 50 years and in some occasions direct spontaneity. And that's the key, to take a picture where I'm actually make a picture. Because when I put my hand into it and I say, you stand there, you look there, I'm making a picture. When a guy just drives by and I take it, that's taking a picture because now I have my hand into it and I'm directing it. So that has helped me a lot. I will tell you though, I embrace both digital and analog media. I don't reject one for the other or the other. And the digital camera, the digital Leica, has such a high quality, low light sensor that it makes going out into the street at night a pleasure. We went out, John and I went out the other day to do the shots, and I brought my digital Hasselblad with me. And I did not like what I saw. I brought film and I'm thinking, we're not going to get this on film. But when I pulled out that Leica with that low light sensor, I'm like, man, this is great. And as we go on, you know, I can go into the darkroom and make a 16 by 20 silver gelatin print. I can't make one of those. And so, you know, this medium is here to stay. It's not going to leave. So we may as well embrace it and enjoy it. So I can do a 20 by 24 Polaroid, and then I can print it into a 10-foot print, and they're both okay. Except there's only, as they said, there can be only one.
Always. Well, it's really nice that you're sharing this with all of us, and I will keep looking for the only one of my shots, as well as I'm sure everybody else here
And
will.
you should come down to Spain next year and work with the 20 by 24, right, John? All these people, let's get them down there.
Yes.
Bring the film, bring the camera, get the people.
Great. That's my last question here. I'm wondering, how do I sign up for this workshop? Because it just sounds amazing. I've been to Malaga before and Madrid, and they're beautiful places, and doing a photography workshop there would be great.
I would say the best thing to do is contact. We haven't, you know, we're still talking about the specifics. We didn't even know that there would be a possibility until yesterday of having other people. Originally, we just talked about me doing it. workshop, exhibition. But I said, maybe, you know, we could incorporate people who might be interested in working on the camera. You know, if I'm there for 10 days or whatever, we take 2 of those days with, depending on who's interested. You know, it's not a spectator sport. It moves slowly. So you can't have like, oh, I'm going to have 5 people on the camera today. That's just not possible. So if we were to say a half day per person, then you can actually get something out of it. And if you just wanted to finish with the 20 by 24 by taking a picture and be done with it, then you're done. If you want to come back and strip the emulsion, then it comes back another day. So we really haven't finalized it, but to stay in touch with me or Andreas, but I'd say start with me, you know, and then I will answer and we will figure it out. We have a year, so we've got some time.
Yeah.
Save your money. Polaroids cost money, right, John?
Correct.
Well, we will make sure to share that workshop link when you have it on the Facebook page for this talk, the sharing experience. If you check the chat, you will see the websites and the info for this sharing experience. We have done this as a Facebook Live, so it's on the Facebook page, and we're hoping to make a Vimeo site where we can share videos in the future.
Great.
And this is all organized for free, actually, not like the workshop that's coming up. So we are asking for PayPal donations. If you feel like you want to leave your money and not complain afterwards, you can do that in the chat. And we're planning to do more of these talks in the future. We don't have a set date for the next one. We will surely come back after summer with more episodes. And we have a mailing list that you can sign up for as well, that you will also find in the chat. But thank you so much for joining, everyone, and hope to see you again, and hope to have you be inspired enough to maybe see your pictures in the future as well.
Thanks everybody for coming in.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jack.
Great job, Jack.